Hey everyone, welcome back. So, if you've noticed over the past several weeks, I have been doing lessons teaching people how to create creatures from specific shapes, namely cubes, cones, cylinders, and spheres. So before I get into today's lesson, which is combining all four of those into one single disgusting, terrifying critter, I do recommend you watch those videos so that you have some basis as to how I'm forming each of those shapes, because when I combine them today, I'm going to be going a little quicker than normal. So without further ado, let's do it. I think the body is going to be a sphere. Okay, so those of you that are new to my channel, I used to teach industrial design, and I used to be an industrial designer years ago, and drawing ellipses and drawing spheres or circles, whatever. It's definitely a skill that you need to acquire because basic shapes can be put into pretty much anything you draw. I'm using my pinky as a guide, so I'm running it across my paper very lightly. I'm not gripping my pencil as if my life depends on it. I'm keeping it sturdy but also loose so that I can do these gestural marks without putting in so much detail and squeezing my hand to the point where I'm uncomfortable and I think I'm going to screw everything up. All right, you want to be loose with this because we're going to start to layer. And then after I get all of the shapes in here, part two is going to be doing the actual indication of skin, nails, spikes, fur, tail, whatever I put on this thing. And then three, there's going to be a small little lesson on how I'm going to shade, and then there's going to be some time lapse. So I definitely encourage you all to draw along with me if you can. Okay, if you're getting frustrated and you feel like you can't, that's okay. Just take a deep breath, put your pencil down, just relax, watch what I do, and then after the video, just try to at least sketch loosely and then get used to the body movements, your mechanical movements with your hands and arms, and then it'll come into place. All right, enough of me yakking. Okay, yapping, not yakking. I'm not throwing up on the screen. Let's go. Sphere. Okay, now I'm not just going to put one sphere in here. I'm probably going to do two. So let's just do another one right underneath it. It's going to be kind of like the beginnings of what looks to be a virus. But I think I might put legs on it. So we have a large circle. Kind of looks like an eclipse almost, like a smaller moon's going in front of a planet or the sun. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to figure out where I want the joints to be for shoulders and arms, tentacles, appendages, whatever I decide to put on there. And I don't necessarily need to make this thing symmetrical, although I might. So I'm just going to put some light lines in here to indicate where some appendages might be able to come out. All right, we got that. So it's kind of looking funky. It almost looks like an alien pig. You got the two eyes here, like an ant head. Then you got the nose here. Looks kind of freaky. All right, so we got that so far. We are combining shapes, so let's put a cone in there. Okay, I'm going to do my ellipse on the side of the head or body. I'm going to do my center line where the cone is, and I'm going to split the ellipse in half. So remember, whenever you split the ellipses in half, ellipses, the splitting, the horizontal line that goes across, cutting the ellipse in half, when you go to the center of it, that's where the vertical line is for the cone. And then you just put the cone in, like so. Easier said than done, right? You just put the cone in. Yeah. This is why I'm hoping that you go back and watch my other videos where I actually teach you how to draw a cone. All right, and it doesn't have to be perfect. This could probably be opened up a little bit more. The reason why I'm opening the bottom of that cone up is because this surface is rounded. All right, so I could round the ellipse, but for the sake of a spike coming out through the skin, which I'm imagining that is, it's probably going to be growing from something that's more flat underneath, like a bone or a muscle, a tendon, etc., or exoskeleton. All right, so I'm just going to indicate where some spikes could exist on the side of the body here, wrapping around. So those are going to be slightly, if I were to shade this, those will be faded into the background. Okay, I'm going to turn my sketchbook because that allows me to move my arm comfortably. All right, again, I don't want it to be totally symmetrical, so I might put another cone here, but larger. Put some ellipses in there. And then, I mean, I've drawn ellipses and cones so much in my career that I don't need to split it in half. Cones are actually really easy to draw. They're the easiest of the four shapes. To me, the cube is the hardest. But whenever you draw a vertical line, like a straight line, if you need to cut something at a 90-degree angle, make sure that you are viewing the sketchbook with the vertical lines completely vertical. Okay, so what I mean by that is if you are doing a tilted, tilted cone like this, and you split that ellipse in half, all right, don't draw the straight line going up to the tip of the cone with your sketchbook still sitting like this, because that's not straight. Turn it vertically until it's 90 degrees. Okay, so I'm cutting the ellipse in half right here on the bottom of the cone because it runs parallel with the edge of my desk. That's how you know. I know it's kind of not really ghetto, but it's like the easiest primitive form of or way of actually knowing if you're doing something straight or not. Just make sure it's parallel to the edge of your desk. Okay, and then just do a vertical line up and then turn your sketchbook back, and voila. You have a nicely sketched 90-degree angle in the cone. All right, I'm going to do the same thing here with this one. Just going to turn my sketchbook. Because if I turned it this way, the creature could be slightly tilted. I don't know. Let's see what happens. All right, so guess what? I need to figure out how the heck I'm going to put a cylinder in here, but also a cube. Now the cube is going to be interesting, and I'm probably going to put it maybe on the sides of a head. I don't know. Let's see what happens. All right, so let's say I want to put a cube up here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my sketchbook again, so the bottom of the cube is going to be running parallel. All right, now this is going to be slightly skewed, so I might want to turn the cube slightly, like this. Again, if you're confused and you have no idea what's going on, that's totally fine. It is normal. Okay, this is a 2-point perspective cube. If you are not familiar with what 2-point perspective is, or 1-point perspective, I'm sorry, it means that all of the construction lines, all of the edges are only going to one vanishing point in the distance. 2-point perspective means that they're going to two vanishing points. You draw the horizon line across your paper, and then you have two vanishing points. 3-point perspective, now we're getting into the crazy high cityscape. I'm standing on top of a skyscraper looking down into the street, that type of perspective. It's a little bit more challenging to do, but if you follow the same principles of perspective, you really can't go wrong with it, as long as your verticals stay straight. Okay, so this is kind of crazy. It almost looks like we got some birthday hats here, and we have a virus, and we have this weird, I have no idea what's happening. It's so fun. All of you watching this, you are literally witnessing this come to fruition for the first time. This was not planned out. I don't have any sketches around me, no reference. I think this might fail. If it fails, I'm still posting the video. I promise. Okay, so let's see where we can go with this. Okay, so now that I'm drawing this cube here, I see a really cool opportunity to have another cube in here, but at a very odd place. So this sphere I'm assuming is going to be the head, I'm actually going to split this one in half. Okay, so I'm going to turn my sketchbook like this so that I make sure that my vertical stays vertical. I'm going to put a vertical line here, and then I'm going to put a cone in. It's going to look like a bird beak almost. Okay, so this is It's a little bit more stretched out, so I gotta, or I'm sorry, it's a little bit more vertical of a cube, so I gotta stretch it out so it's not a rectangle. There we go. So that's gonna be split almost down the middle. And what I mean by down the middle is when you have a cube that's evenly placed, you know, with the 2-point perspective, it's directly in the middle of your plane. You're going to see vertical lines like this, and then you're going to draw through the cube and all that fun stuff. Okay, man, this is looking wild. We have one shape left, and that is a cylinder. I have no idea where to put the cylinder. Let's see what happens. So I'm thinking putting it in different angles probably would be a good idea. I could play it safe and just do a rectangle, or I'm sorry, a cylinder across here. But that's kind of, All right, let's see what happens. So I'm gonna put the center of a cylinder, just going directly across the body. Okay, so if you have seen my lesson in designing cylinders, you know that ellipses are probably the most important part of it. Now this center line right here, this is going to help me cut the ellipse in half at a 90-degree angle. What does that mean? So even before I draw an ellipse, there's going to be no circular movements. I'm going to draw a line that is perpendicular to that one that I drew. So I'm going to turn my sketchbook, okay, until that is sitting completely vertical with my line of sight. So I'm sitting a little bit to the right of my camera, but the vertical line is going straight up and down in my line of sight. So what I'm going to do now is draw a horizontal line to it so that this is 90 degrees. You see that? It's like a little protractor. Okay, that's 90 degrees. The reason that is so important is because that is my ellipse guide. Now I know how much to open the ellipse and at what slope it's going to sit at, as well as how wide it is. Okay, because that was the edge of my horizontal line that I drew there at 90-degree angle. Hopefully you're following along with me. Those of you that are drawing something, you have no idea what's happening, embrace it. You have not messed up, okay? Do not try to be a perfectionist when it comes to this type of sketching, because the beauty of this is not knowing how it's going to turn out, which usually in turn makes some of your best designs possible. All right, so I'm going to turn this back. Now we see like a hodgepodge of shapes starting to take place. Okay, we have our spheres, we have our two cubes, we have our cones poking out. I'm probably going to add more cones too, because I mean you can't get any easier than using a cone as a spike, you know, or a horn. It just name something else that gives that, like a cylinder. Yeah, you just have to point it at the end so it becomes a cone. Okay, enough of me yapping. So now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to draw the edges of the cylinder sitting over here at this angle. Why? Because it's going to be skewed. I've gone over this multiple times in my other lessons. You want to make sure that you turn your sketchbook so that everything is lined up nicely, and then you can draw the edges of your straight lines in general, but you can draw the edges of your cylinder. Look at this. This is also the important, or I'm showing you the importance of drawing through your object. Drawing through your object is one of the most important things you're ever going to do in design, because we do not have X-ray vision. We can't tell what's happening on the other side of an object. But if you do show us what is, then it'll give us, one, an indication that there's actually a solid surface there, there's structure. And two, your perspective is actually going to be better because you know where points are going to. All right, it's like drawing a cube. Okay, you can draw a box as a still life, but when you draw through the box and draw all the edges, all of your perspective lines are more correct. All right, let's see what happens. Again, we're going to take the splitting of the ellipse, and we're going to do it up here. So we're going to do another horizontal. from that center line. Okay, and then we're going to do another ellipse. All right. So this ellipse over here is actually going to be a little wider open, a little wider than this one. So the reason that is, those of you that have no idea why I'm doing that, is because when you stack ellipses within a tube, you're going to see, now see, I'm catching mistakes here, so I got to make sure that that's straight. There we go. Okay. So when you do that, okay, when you draw through your object and you check your perspective and all that, everything is starting to fall into place. Now this won't be pretty, so let's turn this around again. Let's see what happens. All right, so once we put all of those shapes in here, I'm going to put some more cones in. Just some sharp things that are sticking out here. I have no idea what this thing is, but it's fun. Okay, we are now ready to start putting some skin on this thing, some wrinkles. Okay, now the starting point for this, it could be anywhere you want. I typically like to start at the head, and the last time I made a monster or a creature from a sphere, I did make it rather insect-like. So this one is going to be a little different. It might look like an entity or something slimy even. It's like, I don't know, maybe it's a small NPC type creature in a game that you just have to shoot when it falls from the ceiling, tries to attack you, lands on your visor, like, I don't know. But I think I do want to give it eyes, like real eyes with real eyelids, instead of just jet black, round, merciless squid / shark eyes. Okay, so let's say I'm just going to darken this. You know what? It almost looks like a turtle almost, but I don't know how that's going to be. So I'm going to assume that those are the eyes right there. And from that, I want to make sure that I catch the roundness. Now, typically, when I give these lessons out, I'll be really loose and messy with the shading. I think what I'm going to do, just for the sake of you all in the audience actually able to see what I'm drawing, I'm just going to keep the lines darker. I'm going to outline some of the stuff, and then I'll shade off of the outlines so it's more realistic afterwards. All right. The reason these spheres are so good for eyeballs is because it establishes where the eyelids sit on it anyway. Okay, there's one of the things that I notice in a lot of creature design from amateurs is that there's no physical cornea, there's no eyeball shown under the skin. You know, we all have eyes, and our eyelids and the wrinkles and everything sit on top of the eye. You want to make sure that you convey that. There's thickness to it, there's structure. So you can see the structure I'm doing here, okay? You got that little place right down there where the tear duct is. You can check it out on your own eye. It's called the caruncula. It's a very strange word. It's probably Latin, I don't know. Most of our body parts and animals and pretty much everything comes from Latin language. Okay, so do I want to do a turtle creature? It's possible. Do I want to do a turtle creature with a giant bazooka attached to its back that looks like a Koopa Troopa from Mario? That might be possible too. Or I could just go straight on Pokemon. But I don't want to, rip off of anybody else's design. So let's see what happens. Okay, I already have the indication of where a beak could be. So let's do a nostril hole here. I got to turn my sketchbook just a little bit so I can actually make sure the perspective is right. I don't want to copy directly off a turtle, but I might use it to my advantage. Now, all the markings that I'm putting on here right now, I'm making up. Okay, this is just from years of experience of designing creatures. I am thinking of like sea turtles and tortoises and such, but I don't necessarily want to go that route. Okay, so it looks like that cube is actually helping me come up with a really cool, almost like a chin. Maybe if I spike that off down there. Ooh, Okay. Now, I promised you all, I promised myself, I am not going insect on this. Okay, so there will be no insect. However, that does not suggest that I will not go cosmic horror. You all know me by now. You know I love cosmic horror, with a sprinkle of cuteness every now and then. And what I mean by that is maybe like once every 2 years I'll draw something cute. Okay, so one of the biggest influences that I have had over the past decade from creatures are the Pacific Rim movies. I just love those creatures, specifically the very powerful skull structures of them, like the jaws. They're just beautifully drawn, beautifully designed. So what I want to do is I want to put some of that in there. Okay, so thank you, Guillermo del Toro, for your wonderful Pacific Rim movie. All right, we have that. Now, it is looking rather freaky, which is good. I think what I'm going to do is just indicate where a pupil could exist within that head. I don't know. The other thing is we still have hard edges from that cube here. So I'm actually going to use that to my advantage and make that part of the front of the head. Now, the cube, or the corner that's going into the back of the head, that's literally going in the head, so that's not going to have a bony landmark on the outside. We don't know what's happening. However, I do have this sucker. I don't know what that is, okay? But that doesn't suggest that it couldn't be something attached to it, maybe like a mechanical device. So we'll see. And remember, I'm not going to shade anything until I get a good outline. All right, let's see. What the heck is happening? I don't know. I don't know what's happening anymore. This cylinder, man, it's killing me. Okay, I have to add some edges to this. Okay, so there's part of the cylinder. Okay. And then we'll do it up here. So at least there's some body part. Oh man. It looks like a turtle puffer fish, and it accidentally swallowed a spray paint can. That might be what happened. Okay. I don't know yet. Okay. Let's see. Spikes. Let's put some more down here. Maybe it floats. Maybe this creature is telepathic. Maybe it floats like some kind of strange extraterrestrial being. I mentioned this in my last video, but I keep referencing it back. The 1986 movie Invaders from Mars, directed by Tobe Hooper. If you have not seen that yet, it's really crazy. It's so corny, but good at the same time. Those of you that don't know who Tobe Hooper is, he's the originator of Leatherface. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah. All right, there we go. We don't need the exact corner for that. You know what we do need? Some spikes coming off of the bottom jaw here. Now we're talking. Now we're starting to see some cool structure in there. Yeah, that's looking pretty neat. Okay, the more I draw this, the more I'm bothered by that cylinder. I really don't know what's happening. Here's what we need to do. I think we need another joint at the end of that. Some kind of limb. I just had an idea. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. You know how when you see large cats on National Geographic, or just cats in general, and it looks like they're about to pounce, but they're kind of inching themselves closer to their prey, like if they're large cats, lions, tigers, what are panthers, in tall grass and foliage, and they kind of put their shoulder blades up and one arm goes forward. You know that creepy, the army crawl that they do. I think this one's going to do that. So let's do some stick figures, okay? We're going to give a little bonus lesson on stick figures. Lesson number 1, draw the stick. Okay, put an elbow in there. Lesson number 2, draw more sticks. Okay, all these are just the joints underneath. Oh yeah, see what's happening now? Okay, now I feel a little better. So I think what's going to happen is the end of the cylinder up here is going to be its left arm, but it's leading with this one, so it's almost like it's crawling towards you. Now, I don't know how well that's going to work, because it's almost like this shoulder is being pulled out more than this one, so maybe it's going to have to crunch up. I don't know. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we're going to do another sphere up here because we have to count for it. Even though we're drawing through the object, we know it exists. Let's do it, okay? Now, the other thing is, and this is a little bonus lesson also within a bonus lesson of stick figuring, is when you do weight distribution and you also make sure that your limbs are accounted for on the other side of the body, make sure that they're the same length, okay? I'm totally guilty of this. Like, I would draw an arm, and the part of the arm where it attaches to the shoulder and then all the way down to the ulna and the elbow and all that stuff, it's longer on one side of the body than the other. So I'm just going to take my pencil and I'm going to physically measure how long that is. So then I can put it up here and go, oh, all right. So ballpark. There we go. And then I'll do the forearm. I'll do the same thing. I'm just eyeballing this. And then there's the wrist. There's the hand. There we go. Oh yeah, we're getting deadly now. You know what I want to do? No, actually, you don't know what I want to do. How would you know that? I'm going to put extra set of eyes in there. All right, so once I put the extra set of eyes in there, I told you I'm going cosmic horror on this. You just got to make sure that it at least looks decent. Remember, I said I'm not shading anything yet. This is strictly outlining. I'll get into the shading and everything later when the time lapse comes up. But I just want you all to see the construction so I can do this and make sure that it's, it's in view. You can see the limbs and everything. It's a larger drawing, so I'll kind of shift it around so you can see the whole thing. Okay, so now we're talking. I honestly probably will just ignore that cube up top. I don't need it. So I'll just turn it into something else. I don't need that thing. But what I do need is a better way to display these spikes and cones. So with that said, I'm going to be making some cones that are coming at us. All right, so there's going to be slightly squeezed ellipses, and maybe the cone is coming at us like this. It's split in half. If you ever draw a spike, if you're used to drawing spikes that are coming directly at you, just know where to put the points within the circle, because that's the tip of the spike. Okay, and then the cone is around it. It's easier said than done. You just have to practice it. Once you know how to tilt these shapes, you're going to start to see it like it's second nature. Okay, so now, technically, this thing could be walking on just two legs. It could. All right, so with that said, why don't we just start connecting these shapes? I'll put this, make sure it's in view. There we go. Maybe I'll put some extra tendons and muscle shapes in there. There we go. Then we have this side. So in the back here, again, it's like a cat rearing up. There's the crazy forearm. Let's get a little creative with the feet. I know that the feet are, that's an area on creature design where, listen, I'm totally guilty of this too. I would hide feet on purpose. I would hide hands on purpose because I couldn't draw them, or I didn't know what to do creativity wise. So let's say that we break this up into smaller spheres. All right, just make sure you can see this. There we go. So those are all spheres. And then really just connect them. Okay, those are the joints. Those are now the joints. The spheres become the joints. Okay, and then there could be a third one in the back here. And then if you get, and they don't even have to have claws. You could just do some sharpness to the joints to make it look like little spikes are coming out from the joints. And since it has 3, it just, it sits like a tripod, just like this. Some balance. This could be the back one that helps it walk. These 2 can help pull it along when it's crawling. Okay, and also one of the funnest things about creature design is you don't have to prove that its center of gravity works because you don't know what kind of planet it lives on. Okay, maybe it does walk on only these 2. Maybe the rest of it floats, or there's some kind of magnetism within the planet that it lives on and it actually keeps it upright. Maybe it has metal in it. I don't know. I'm just thinking outside the box here. But one thing that is certain, and that is whenever you draw fingers, you can't be stiff with the fingers, okay? You have to show that if the creature is walking, how will those fingers bend in order to support weight? Think about your hand. All right, now push your fingers down onto the paper. Now look how the fingers bend outwards. Okay, look how the thumb is positioned where it goes straight down and it doesn't bend as much. Okay, that's probably the anchor appendage, I guess you can call it. Okay, or anchor finger. And then these 2 will bend because they're a little looser. So think about toes and how your imaginary creature would actually walk along the ground. Now, what joint or fingernail or part of its anatomy would bend to show that weight is being pushed down? Okay, this is what I was mentioning earlier about weight distribution. It's amazing how many people don't do this in their creatures. That's why they look stiff. That's why they look like they're just some kind of, I don't know, I've said this too many times, but like a constipated alien. Like, you don't want that. Okay, so just make sure that you have some weight distribution here. There's probably going to be tentacles and everything around the creature once I start shading it and doing all that fun stuff. And I'll try my best to kind of move it around, keep it in frame, and just so you can see it. And actually, in the time lapse, you'll notice that I'm going to reposition my camera so that it's going to be a wider shot. All right, so you'll be able to see everything. Okay, we're not quite there yet. There's still some stuff I want to add because there's not real clarity as to what's going on with the shoulder. So what I would like to do is just continue this. Maybe the neck can be brought here. Maybe there's some wrinkles. Okay, I can't put wrinkles in, but there's still no shading. This is going to be stretched out, obviously. And in the back here, I just want to make sure that these spikes and everything are attached. And when we do eventually shade, we're not going to go into so much detail that it's going to become like a sea of sameness, and I don't want that. So obviously, most of the attention is going to be at that face. Okay, because that's where the personality is. Remember that. When you guys are drawing along with me or just drawing creatures in general, always put the personality in that face and then fade the details up out of that. Because it's easier to finish the body off when you know the face looks good and not vice versa. If you draw an awesome looking hand and it has like awesome joints and veins and everything in it, you could very well screw up the face and then the hand doesn't matter. Right? You want a very compelling head. You want that character to come through. Okay, so we still need to figure out what to do with that head. And I have an idea. I don't know it's going to work. I'm not sure. But let's test it out. I'm actually going to make the head a cone. Bear with me. Wish me luck. All right, let's see what happens. Do any lips here? Okay. Okay, it's going to come up here. Please don't look like a dunce cap. Okay. All right, I can live with that. I can live with that because essentially any imperfections can be fixed or manipulated in the shading process when I start adding values. Because we really don't know what's going to happen with the critters that we sketch until we start applying details and we're figuring out like, oh, okay, so the forms and everything actually are coming through. But what I can do is put some cool indications. Remember, we're going Lovecraft, so there's like cosmic horror, maybe some ancient alien symbolage going on here. or just the way it's formed over the millennia. All right, so there we go. Yeah, that's actually kind of cool. It's doable. Okay, it's like a little boss critter, you know, in a video game or something. Okay, we got that. Here's what else I can do to just help along with the cosmic horror aspect of it. In the back of the creature, because we cannot see its bottom or its legs or whatever, what if we indicate where some tentacles could exist? All right, so in that case, let me move this down a little bit. What I'll do is I'll just indicate maybe on the side here some thicker tentacles, but there's no real emphasis on them. They're just kind of there to show you that, hey, maybe there is something on the back of this creature, but it's not important, nor does it, you know, help establish any kind of personality or anything. All right. There we go. Okay, so again, there was no shading in this. I started with, you know, I did the sphere, did a second sphere, and then we did cubes, and then cones, obviously everywhere, and then cylinder directly across here, and it actually worked out quite well. Listen, those of you drawing along with me and are kind of intimidated by it, give yourself permission to screw up. It's okay. You have to keep doing this, and then once you get a design you actually like, you're going to be pleasantly surprised at what you can work with and what you can pull out. That's part of the creativity. That's part of the creature design process. Okay, so again, we're going to jump into some time lapse, and you're actually going to see me flesh this sucker out to a living, breathing creature. There's going to be some shapes that I do change. I will not use the eraser once, although it is okay to use the eraser. It's okay. Just don't use it a lot. All right? Try to use it sparingly. I might make some of these joints a little thicker and stronger looking, put some more stretched skin, wrinkles, membranes, and such. But you'll see. It's going to be a wider angle so you can see the entire page. All right? Without further ado, let's see some time lapse.